It's time for a recap for October's reading. It was massive. The pile was a little bit aggressive. This is only half of the pile creeping in right here. It was pretty rough. Well, just over half. Anyways, the point is we'll get to it. Thank God I recorded the first 2 weeks of October as a reading vlog. I'll put the link to that video in the description below if you want to check out deeper thoughts. I'm just going to surface crawl through them on my way to the second half of October, which was lighter in the fiction but heavier in the manga. And I'll get into the reasons why I've lost the last week of October, and I'll get into all of that as I work through the list, because I want to start a reading, review, commentary, analysis sort of vlog series on this channel for Attack on Titan, and this has been like a long planning goal of mine, so let's just leave it at that. It's got history across a couple other channels. I do have the original analysis video breakdowns of these where I go chapter by chapter and kind of do narrative breakdowns and analysis along the way. I'm switching the format because I just want to come at these a little bit more freestyle and more conversational, I suppose, around the series. So I'm going to move on because I do have to talk about other ones. I did a reread of the volume 3, of course, and this caught me back up to the series. I will be reading Blind from volume 4 on, and I read this one about a year ago before that, and so it was really good to kind of catch up on volume 1 to 3 before jumping into volume 4. And with those rereads aside and the vlogs recorded, which are also on the channel, which you can check out, first up in October in terms of fiction was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Unexpectedly enjoyed this book quite a bit. So this book and the following two, you can hear the deeper thoughts, of course, in the first half of October. This is a weird way to say, just check out the other video down below so I don't repeat myself. And I honestly, again, I can't, thank God I recorded that, because I will not have, the memories won't be as fresh as to my opinions about this. Could I still ramble on about what I enjoyed about this and the characters and the moments? I do. They're all coming back to me right now, even as I said that, but it won't be as raw. And I feel like those memories lose a little bit of the energy if I were to talk about it right now. So I'm not sure if I might be doing weekly updates going forward. I finish the week, maybe on a Sunday, and then I record the updates on what I've read so far, because I feel like that's when I'm going to get the more raw comments out. Anyways, check this out in the previous vlog on that. And then, not to take a break, because I really enjoyed that, but I didn't want to jump into the second book right away, because I want to sort of build up some of that tension and expectation. So I jumped onto a manga. First up was Junji Ito's Tomie, of course, chunky, but is a manga, so it was a relatively decent read. The summary on this one is that I really enjoyed it. I was a little bit concerned about the repetitious nature of the narrative scaffolding, I suppose, that was around this storytelling and the character of Tomie, and just like the curse behind her, or the thing that she is. I just felt like maybe it would have gotten redundant, and it truly didn't, and I'm not sure how Junji Ito pulled that off, but he did. Every story was captivating, and I really enjoyed getting to the end of this one. And of course, Junji Ito's art, I'm going to flip to a random page here, is always memorable, and there's just a distinct quality to it, which I'll talk about in a future book. I'll talk about in a future book. Anyways, I really enjoyed Tomie, and I moved on to break of manga, I suppose. I guess, is this in order? Did I read Abraham? I'm pretty sure I kept this pile in order. I read Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter next, before jumping back to the Hunger Games. And again, this one also surprised me. Were there some slow bits? Yes, that I had to kind of get through, especially in, this is split up into 3 books. Abraham as a child, and then as a, I guess, teenager, early 20-year-old as the vampire hunter, and then later in his career when he goes for president. So I thought it was really well constructed. I wish there was more of the vampire-y stuff in here. I felt like those moments were very fast-paced, and then when it went to the real life kind of stuff, it would slow down. And so there were these like ebbs and flows through this book, is my memory of it. And again, thoughts in the first vlog in the first 2 weeks of October. And we're gonna move on, because I'm gonna keep saying that over and over again as I crack through these. So Catching Fire, did I enjoy this as much as the first book? No, but it was still high up there. It was still a very captivating read, captivating characters, and again, an unexpected enjoyment of the series. And I'm just gonna move on to book 3 here, because I'll say, like, Mockingjay sort of winded down for me. I thought the last, I guess, the last quarter of this, it didn't pan out the way I would have anticipated, considering the pacing of the story and the other ones, and just like the depth of some of the stuff. I felt like the treatment of some of the characters and the way that they get resolved, let's put it that way, I felt like it wasn't narratively rich as it could have been. Could it be argued to have been more realistic? Yes, but that's not, this is a story. Because, and I say this because the other books weren't really set up to come across realistic. You know, there was a story. When things happened to certain characters, for example, Ro, for those of you who know, it's not like you had many interactions with Ro, but you had interactions. Like, you had moments in the story that introduced Ro, that then there was the connection with the Ro, with, you know what I mean? And then there was the moment, and it felt like there was this escalation point for you to kind of feel something for when that moment happens with Ro. So I feel like some characters got the shaft, is what I would say with this one, and I really wish that it was just done in a different way, especially in the last chapter. Was that the last two chapters with the losses there? I was just like, how? It was like the whole trilogy you spent building up a certain character and relationship, and the way it was taken out is like, could it have been realistic? Yes, you can argue that that's how war goes. I get it. I get it. But this is a story, and I felt like it just lost me in that last quarter, I would say. Maybe even less, like the last fifth of this third book. It didn't compromise the entire trilogy, but it didn't leave as crazy a mark as what I was hoping for when I read the first book. My arms are twisting. I'm going to pull out Blood Meridian. This is the book that after reading this one was where I was like, I need to record the update video now, because I knew I had thoughts about this book that there was no way I was going to remember over the next 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks to get to the end of October. Cormac McCarthy definitely threw me off. I ended up switching to hybrid mode for this book as my memory. At one point, like, I went from, and I believe I said this in the first vlog, right? I highly recommend you follow the words. Even if you go to audiobook, you follow the words on the page, because there's something about the way this is written, the structure of it, the no punctuation. There's just something alarming-ish with the way that the flow works that adds to the experience of consuming this media. I ended up switching to audiobook just so that I could follow it along more cohesively, but I did find myself thinking that if I was just listening to the audiobook, I would not have picked up on some of the things that are just visualized as words, and it's hard to explain. I understand that. It's hard to explain, but I highly recommend, if you're just listening to the audiobook, it's just going to come across as like a dark, I was going to say somber. It's not even somber. It's just bleak. It's bleak and it's dark. And if you're just hearing that as a story, you're probably not going to like it. That's literally how I felt about it. I'm like, but as a book, as fiction, as a literary piece, you sort of have to follow the words. That's all I can say about this one. More information on the blog below. And now I'm going to go into the new territory here, and I switched back to manga. I went to Junji Ito's Uzumaki, again, chunky, and I maybe read this in like 2 days. And what can I say? The summer here is spirals. This town is contaminated with spirals. Yep, so it's a curse of spirals, essentially. Spirals are everywhere in this town. Not to give the summary on this, it's a recommend. It's a recommend. It starts as what seems like it's going to be a collection of short stories that are not connected, just about with the theme of spirals making people go crazy, or they're addicted to the idea of the spirals, or spirals literally invade their lives and change them and things around them. It's crazy, again, how Junji Ito can take one concept and then explore it this much. It's crazy. But then as you keep reading, there's like the son of the first character in this, that something goes down. But that son keeps appearing in the stories, and the connections and relationship that he has along the way, that sort of carries the rest of the short stories along. Like, even if those characters don't appear, there's always a connection point in the city between some people or some ideas, or it's just threaded in a very subtle way sometimes, but it's all sort of connected into this weird mystery of the spirals, and it culminates into like this. Even the ending is like, it's epic, but it's so strange that it's like, if you explain it, it's like it doesn't sound like it's grounded and like it makes any sense. But when you read it, you're like, I don't know how he does it. That's all. I don't know how he does it, because you're reading it like, no, all of this makes sense in a way that shouldn't make sense, but it makes sense, and the story is done. And then you're like, it's done. It's conclusive with the way that it kind of spirals back to the beginning. It just dawned on me. But yeah, anyways, I highly recommend Uzumaki. And of course, the art here was still, I'm just gonna open up to a random one. But yeah, it's the snail boys or snail men moments. Great. But the art always stands out to me. Uzumaki. Can't wait to read more Junji Ito. But that said, I did read more of Junji Ito. I wanted to read Junji Ito's take on Frankenstein, and when I first picked this up and thought, it's just going to be a version of Frankenstein. No, you read it. And I read Frankenstein at the end of September, right? And I did the vlog early October. October, so the thoughts were still fresh in my mind. This was like 2.5 weeks later, and when you're reading it, you're like, no, this is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, just in manga form. And I will say, like, this is where the art threw me off, because it was very un-Junji Ito. Like, it's just this clean manga style. I'm not sure when this was done in his career. I thought I put this on my shelf in publishing order, in chronological order, but I don't think that is true based on the art style. I feel like this is something he might have done. Like, even in the more darker panels here, like, it's still not, it doesn't feel quite like the Junji Ito in Uzumaki and Tomie and some of the other series that are on my shelf back there. Like even when the faces go dark, right, the eyes aren't done like eyes are done today, like in my memory of Junji Ito's art on the other books. So I feel like maybe he did this to exercise his artistic talents, possibly, but generally it followed the story, my memory of the story, like I mean, very, very, very closely. Where it ended up deviating was right when you get to the end. I was like, because I got a good chunk into this and I knew it was about to end at some point, and I was like, how is he gonna still wrap up? Because I knew how the last maybe quarter of Frankenstein went, and I was like, there's a lot of information to cover here, and I think I'm reaching the end pretty fast. And so when you get there, he really ramps through the last part of Frankenstein. Like, for those of you who know Frankenstein, I mean, yeah, I don't think I'm spoiling anything here, but it's like when Victor Frankenstein doesn't fulfill the wishes of the monster of Frankenstein by creating a bride of Frankenstein, or a female for Frankenstein. Like, he ends up opting out of that. And I mean that whole scene was not in the book, or maybe there's a different version of Frankenstein that this is in, because I think there was like one that was edited after Mary Shelley wrote hers. Is that right? Something like that. So maybe there was like, this was an extended scene in that version of Frankenstein where the bride of Frankenstein sort of loses her shit, and then her and the monster fight, and then she just falls apart into pieces, and that trips the monster off, and then the monster goes off, and I'm not going to show the panels, but the monster goes off and takes out people close to Victor Frankenstein, and then we're on the boat, and at that point it's like, well, it's sort of, and this was in a couple pages, it crawled over maybe a couple chapters worth of Frankenstein, and then we're on that chase, right, the Arctic chase, and that in itself is only a couple pages long, and it wraps up pretty fast is what I would say. It doesn't have that monologue moment where Frankenstein comes on the boat after Victor dies, and then there's this talks about things to what's the captain's name again? How do I forget the captain's name? I'm stumbling about. Anyways, we're gonna move on, and then it's just like it's just him on the Arctic, and then it just kind of fades away, and we don't get that. Like, it's just different. It's different. It almost felt like he was done the experiment of Frankenstein. It's half of this book, by the way. He was done with the experiment, and then he's just like, I just want to wrap this up. But here's the thing, it wraps up actually pretty good. Like, it's almost like, I wouldn't say better than Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That final monologue of the monster was actually pretty neat, because of how unexpected it was for me. I didn't think that was in the original Frankenstein, that kind of thing. But from a storytelling perspective, this sort of just got to the point and like wrapped it up. And then we move on to a series of short stories. This one featuring Nick Spector, and the name of the chapter is Nick Spector. And it's another scenario where you feel like you're reading these short stories about this kid and this weird cursed house that this kid lives in, and weird time anomalies, and then mutations, and then interdimensional versions of himself coming through, but then it's like you see enough repetition in here where it feels like this is all happening in the same city kind of thing, or again, because it's like multiverses, it could be the same character but in different parallel universes. It's hard to explain. You just got to read it. The short stories are still creepy, as is Junji Ito's way, but I mean, I'll just open up to I'll stop here on a random place right here. But like the art itself, even that eye, Junji Ito tends to have like an art style when it comes to eyes in particular, but you don't really get it here. You don't get that Junji Ito art style that you're super familiar with. You get this art style that was effectively this clean line art style that was in the Frankenstein story, right? So I really do, I might need to look at the publication dates of some of these stories and to see, because even again, when it gets creepy, it's Junji Ito for sure, but it feels like proto Junji Ito. Like he's taking a step towards that macabre kind of grotesque line work Junji Ito that is familiar to me today and to many others, I'm sure. This was a good page right here that kind of gets there you go. That's when you start to get, and almost looks like Garbage Pail Kids. That's when you start to get a little closer to the Junji Ito that I'm familiar with in the other stories. And that was just a fun little short story about Junji Ito's dog, I suppose. I think is the dog's name Pretty or something. Anyways, it's just a silly little short story. Oh, it was good. It was good. What can I say? Still a recommend. It's different, is what I would say. I forget what I rated this one. But as you can see, I'm working my way through right here where my arm stops. That's my Junji Ito section. So I thought that was in chronological order. I'm gonna have to recheck that. But there you go. That's one more down. And at that point, I shifted back to Attack on Titan. I went blind into Volume 4 and recorded a vlog on this one. And part of that vlog series is that I'm experimenting with the style of the vlog itself, because I'm not committing to one way of producing it. I just want to get through the series by the end of the year is my hope. What did I think about Volume 4? I thought it was, let me flip through it real quick just to remind myself of what went down. Yeah, I won't go too in depth with each of these volumes because it'll get very, very long. And because I already record about 45 minutes worth of vlog, whether it's with the blind reads or like I've read it and then I'm just doing a vlog on it, which I did for the next volumes, there's plenty of content on my thoughts along the way. Volume 4, though, at the high level, the scene that stands out to me was Eren getting control of the vertical maneuvering exercises, even though his it's kind of a spoiler, even though his gear was sort of busted, but he still manages to do it. And so it's like, well, he was failing the entire way, but he really wasn't. He was actually succeeding more because his gear was malfunctioning, you know? And so anyways, that part stood out to me. And then, yeah, you can check out the series of vlogs to find out way more granular context as to my feelings. Volume 5 is slowed things down. It definitely crept to a crawl. I believe I gave this a 3 out of 5 at one point, but it could have been a 2. It was necessary. It goes back into the kind of for you to get more of a character snapshot, I would say, along the way. Just some ideas about a lot of expositionary kind of stuff, and it flashes back, and so it just throws things off. It throws the momentum off. Still enjoyable from a world building perspective, absolutely. But as a standalone volume, it definitely was weaker. It was weaker. And then Volume 6, which I just recorded the vlogs for Volume 5 and Volume 6 yesterday. I'm trying to catch up, aggressively catch up so I could record this video and summarize things for the month. But Volume 6, holy crap. This one picked things up. This was a 5-star. So just for relative comparison, we've swung back around to, as a standalone, and this is sort of relative to all of them, is that we've swung back around to a 5-star read in terms of pacing. The art style increases quality significantly, in my opinion. The drama, the tension, the character moments, there was just so much good of Volume 6, and we're just creeping into the series. This isn't even, is this a fourth way into the series? Quick math, 7, 14, 28 is 4, 20, 35, so it's a fifth of the way through the series. And so I've been ramping through the catch up on the vlog part of this week so that I could get into November and talk about what the next plans are. So there you go. And then there's 7. So I also already read 7. I haven't done the vlog for this one. I'm not going to spoil some of my thoughts about things on this update because this is just an update video, but I will be doing a full, likely 45-minute vlog on this one as well. I really enjoyed it, is my memory, but I need to go through it again in order to really cement where I feel the series is at. And I say this because I want to maybe create a tier list now as I go and sort of organize this based on, against each other, because I wanted to also read Volume 8, but I did not get to Volume 8. And so when I record maybe 7 or when I get to 8, I will start like a top 8, maybe. I will shuffle those around as I read them. I will, if they fall in the top 8, then the other ones will get shifted down. Or I can do something like a tier list and have all of them by the end of this vlog series. It'll be a full, 34 manga tier list, I suppose. So just looking at this cover, I sort of spoiled, I didn't spoil something in 7 because I've read it, but I mean, and now I know something she's still around. Is what I know. So looking forward to this, and this starts the I didn't get to the book pile for October. I plan to read this. As you can see, it was already an aggressive month of October. I didn't get to this. I could have, but I wanted to do the vlogs along the way, and so that's why me working out the production of this vlog series is sort of like I need to be more loose about it, and we're just gonna dive in, and the vlog is gonna be this extra thing that happens. They don't have to be similar to another. Maybe this one will just be a review instead of a full 45-minute vlog. I don't know. I'm gonna figure that out as I go, but I want to keep the pace up because I want to finish the series by the end of the year, and there's a lot of books to read. I didn't end up getting to Walking Dead: Rise of the Governor. Now I swapped this one out. I ended up having the Wood to Woodbury on the October list, but then I found this one at a thrift shop during a haul in October. And I was like, wait, there's more books? And so I found out this was the first book, and so I swapped it out in October, but I didn't get to it. I really wanted to force myself to get to it. I feel like this is going to be a relatively fast read, but I really wanted to get the Attack on Titan books done. So this will likely move into November. I'm not sure. I will record that video maybe still today after I pick the books I want to read in November. But I do want to get through the Walking Dead series. I did find out since finding the second book that there are at least 5 out there. There could be more, but I think 5 or might be sticking in my head because I saw the third book. It was a part 1 or it was a 4th book. Like I don't know. I have to write this down. I have to put this in a spreadsheet. I have to track these now. And every time I hit a thrift shop, I'm going to see if I can pick up more of these Walking Dead books because I think they'll be fun. And I'm a completionist, so I want to read all of them in order, preferably. Okay, and then which ones did I not finish? I did not even crack back into the Dragon Age Tevinter Nigths. It's still exactly where I left it at the end of September. The game did drop. I did end up getting it. I will be playing it. So I would like to read this before booting up the game and potentially spoiling things inside the game because maybe they talk, not spoiling, you can't really spoil. This is likely world building stuff in here, but I like to read the rest of the short stories in here before cracking into the game and getting past the character generator, I suppose, and maybe the first 2 hours of the game or something, right? So this will likely be in the November TBR. It's not that much left to read. I think it's a relatively easy romp. I did end up starting Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. It was a random start at some point, maybe just past the middle of October, right after I read Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. I got only about 80 or 90 pages in. I could just check that, I suppose. 85 pages, right in the middle. I stopped at the point where I felt like I was in. I was hooked. I was in. This is a heavier book than it looks like. God damn. It's just dense pages. Anyways, I will probably read this in November. This will likely be in that TBR so that I can maybe skim past. I don't think I need to reread the first 80 pages. It's still pretty fresh. It was a really... The writing is very clear, is how I would put it. And the moments stick with you. The characters stick with you. I've got very high hopes for Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson. Looking forward to that one in November. And then the one I was reading last. This is the one that just dragged on for me in October. So after Blood Meridian, I wanted to read this one next, but then I started Mistborn, and then I started reading Attack on Titan manga, and then I threw in Uzumaki, and then I threw in Frankenstein. And this one I was creeping through this one while kind of finishing these other manga and stuff like that, because it's not that it's a bad read. It's not a did not finish. Like it's not a DNF for me, but it's like well written and it's fun, man. But I feel like I just couldn't get through this one versus wanting to read something else. And it's crazy because I actually really like Christopher Moore's writing style. I like the kind of scenarios he creates with these characters, Biff and Joshua. And it's crazy because it's like the Bible retelling in a almost not contemporary because it's in the past. It's hard to explain, man. It's just a really fun read. And I don't think it's going to be like under 3 stars. I really don't. I'm a quarter way through and it's maybe going to be, I want to hope that this is going to be a 4-star. Might it be a 3-star? I mean, maybe, because of how I feel like it's not. It's like I should be compelled to want to keep reading this, but I always find something else to do instead, and that's usually not a good sign. Or maybe I'm just not in the mood. You know what I mean? Like it's not the right time for me to get into a book like this. I'm not sure what it is. I read this later at night, and it's like stuff that's funny and it should keep me going, but then I just kind of get tired. I get tired not because of the book. I just feel like it was just like in the last half of October, my energy levels were just completely shot and I wasn't able to really commit. Whereas I feel like Mistborn, I didn't feel that. Like this is probably a 5-star. Like I didn't feel that ever. And I was like, I read that all in one sitting. And it's like, I didn't mean to. That's the point. So I feel like this one's going to go relatively fast. I do feel like I need to keep this in November. And so this will likely be on the TBR for continuing just because I need to get through it. I need to commit and get through it. So these are going to be the 3 that I must commit to, or at least try. I mean, when you look at all of the books together, this is going to be a dangerous pile, is what this is going to be. Oh no, this is dangerous. This is very dangerous because some of the books on the bottom are smaller, etc. So there you go. This is going to be a disaster. This is going to be a disaster. As you can see, it was a pretty aggressive stack for October, is what I'm going to say. Oh God, don't break my books. Don't break my books. Okay, break you all apart. You're going to go back to your homes in due time. So there you go. How many books? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So let me do it this way. 5 books read in October. These were all read in the first 2 weeks of October at that. So probably could have been more aggressive on the fiction side. We've got 7 manga for the Attack on Titan in October, plus the 3 Junji Ito collections in October, and then 2 started but not finished in October. One that was not even recracked into in October from September, and one that did not even get started in October. And that's the summary. So still pretty aggressive. It was a fun read. I wish I could have read more, but I did have some interrupters along the way that knocked out my last week of October. I also started playing video games again because I had nerve issues with my arms, and it lasted months to kind of get through, and that's kind of why I went to the hospital to like determine some stuff yesterday. And so it's relatively fine, but I still can't overuse my the nerve in my elbow here has degeneration going on, so it's bad, and it's messing up my hand, and so I couldn't play video games for a couple months. But I'm getting back into slowly cracking into some games. I started things like Walking Dead, Telltale Games Walking Dead from 2012. I guess I didn't read the book, so I figured I'd play the game. I don't know, I was in a Halloween, like I was getting into the Halloween mood, and I do want to finish that game, and it's the weekend right now, and so I'm probably gonna try to finish it today, to be honest, today and tomorrow. Give that update in maybe the TBR. I'll mix that in with some of the video games that I'll be playing throughout November as well. But that kind of stuff, like when I get into editing and production, that takes up time as well. I want to do those vlogs for Attack on Titan. If I'm doing the vlogs, I'm not reading. You see me, so like I have to commit my evenings to one thing or the other. Navigating that is a little bit tricky, but it's still, you know, relatively good grind, especially for the first 2 weeks of October, where I was still more in a reading mood than anything else mood. And so it really, these kinds of vlogs really help me contextualize what's possible when I shift my time around to focus on the different things that I want to do, right? Like I literally can't do everything, although I always try, and then I end up failing on all of it. So I love the traction I'm getting on the reading side of things, because I've done a couple more thrift shop hauls throughout October, and all those videos are on the channel for you to check out. I've got a lot of books. There was one haul I did, it was 25 books. Like I have stacks in this room and the room right beside me, which are still the stacks of the haul. Like, so I can think about them as this was the first haul, this was the second haul, third haul, fourth haul, fifth haul. So I got 5 stacks right now around the house, and I got another double stack that I haven't really done a video on yet, which were library book hauls. There's a lot of books in here. So I will try to record some of those along the way in November. And in November, in a week, I'm going to be going out of province for work, and I've already marked off all of the thrift shops along the way between here and then now the other province. So when I come back from the other province, I might take the extra day off, and I'm going to try to hit up as many of those as possible back on my way down. Maybe I'll record a macro vlog, macro level vlog, thrift shopping along the way. I'm trying to collect as many 20% off coupons from family and friends along the way to see if I can truly maximize that road trip back. It's about a 10 to 12 hour drive if I were to go straight, but I think I'm probably going to need another day. So I'm probably going to stop halfway down so that I give myself time to be in those thrift shops. I'm going to be passing through some very big towns, and in big towns, I would imagine there are a lot more books inside these thrift shops, a lot more options, and I'm probably going to find a bunch of books that I need to that will plug up some of the holes in my collections. And so I'm really looking forward to that hunt, and I will try to record as much as possible along the way, maybe out of the car, and I'll turn it into a larger vlog or something like that. We'll see what turns out, because I don't know what I might find or might not find. It maybe they might not give for good content, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Anyways, that's the update video for October. I will be back to record the November TBR, probably still today. Oh my God, there's so much stuff to do today. Oh man, it's going to be exciting. But I feel that this catch up is really good. It's necessary. I feel like I'm really enjoying the production part of this, and I'm looking forward to more. So I'll catch you there. Don't forget to explore, engage, and inspire, buddy. Peace.